I love books. My whole family loves books. And I never, ever get rid of books. I just can't do it. The thought of getting rid of books just seems like an act of sacrilege. I even still have all my college textbooks. One book in particular, The Human Odyssey, Lifespan Development, which was published in 1993, really came in handy when I was researching the info for this podcast episode. What I wanted to know was this: are there biological principles of growth that can hint at or point us to some non-biological principles, such as emotional, mental, spiritual, etc.? Here's what I found, which I then, of course, verified with modern research. Humans do not develop in a biologically haphazard manner. Our development follows consistent patterns and is governed by principles that are now really well recognized. For example, the head and brain of an infant are better developed at birth than the feet and the hands. Development begins at the head and then proceeds downward. Control of the arms develops ahead of control of the feet. The second principle of development says that organs nearest to the middle of any organism develop before those farthest out. So for humans, our internal organs develop much faster than, say, our arms, and babies learn to control their arms before they can control their hands. Even our muscles follow a specific development path from control of mass to specific muscles, which is why younger kids use those broad, sweeping strokes of the forearm or hand when they're doing something like, say, coloring with a crayon. It's only later that they gain the dexterity to use specific finger muscles in a coordinated manner. The rate of growth has a pattern as well. About twice as much growth occurs between birth and age 3 as between ages 3 and 5. We call that a growth spurt, right? Kids can experience a surge in length or height by more than half an inch in just one day. I mean, as you can imagine, a suddenly taller body could be a real challenge. Longer arms and legs result in clumsiness that wasn't as apparent yesterday. And for parents, the item of clothing that fit yesterday is frustratingly too small just 24 hours later. Every parent knows exactly what I'm talking about. At the beginning of puberty, both males and females begin a second growth spurt that nearly matches the newborn toddler phase. Although growth takes place in all dimensions, the most obvious is height, which generally peaks at about age 12 in girls and age 14 in boys. Probably none of what I just told you is surprising. Most of it can be learned by observation alone. But did you know scientists now say that 90 to 95% of the time, even healthy babies are barely growing, if at all? So those growth charts that we see in the doctor's office showing an uninterrupted curve of increasing size across age? Fake news. Normal growth, researchers say, is not really continuous. Instead, it occurs only when chemical signals either trigger or permit cell division and or cell expansion. And when this trigger happens, which scientists call saltation, that just means leap, it actually interrupts what they call stasis, which just means stand. So when do these saltation leaps happen? Well, it varies, but anywhere from every 3 to every 60 days in the first year of life, increasing to several months at older ages, and these leaps can last even up to 2 to 3 days. So you have regular periods of stasis or standing still, followed by little saltation leaps. But then you have certain times of life when a bunch of little leaps happen in rapid enough succession that even the casual observer can recognize them as growth spurts. Okay, so what's the point of all this? I'm sure you've seen the meme that says something along these lines. If you get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times, that's 3,700% better by the end of the year. Now, this comes from a 2009 email that Alfred Lin, who used to be the chairman, COO, and CFO at Zappos, sent to his team. The email spread far and wide, eventually ending up in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear in 2018. Since then, it has literally circled the globe. The heart behind this is that as you're setting goals for your life or for a new year even, just focus on consistent 1% growth each day, and it can compound to create much more change than inconsistent large leaps. It sounds brilliant in theory, but based on both science and the Bible, I don't think it's very realistic. If we refer back to the biological principles that I just explained, growth looks more like this. Regular times of standing still interrupted periodically by little leaps. Most of life is standing still because, think about it, you're learning to adapt to and apply the little leap of growth that you just experienced. Then you take another little leap, but you probably don't notice any of the leaps unless you are carefully measuring. 2. Seasons when a bunch of little leaps rapidly combine into giant spurts. So there are times when you grow and change rapidly, and it shows to you and to everyone around you. But these don't happen as often as you or I might like. If they did, it would be clumsy and awkward for us and everyone around us. 3. Large to small. You start with big ideas and general concepts and slowly increase your ability to understand and then work with the precise details. 4. Head to tail. Growth starts with a better mind, and inside to outside. A better mind then always eventually leads to a better life. Oh, and then there's the Bible verse that has always fascinated me. It's from 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. It says this, "We all, with unveiled faces, are looking as in a mirror at the glory of the Lord and are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory. This is from the Lord who is the Spirit." Now, the Greek verb for are being transformed is metamorphou, which is where the word metamorphosis comes from. And it literally means with or accompanying formation. In the Greek, the verb is considered what's called present indicative, which just simply means transformation is a fact that is present in our lives. Now, that agrees with both what we can observe and what science says. There's no surprise there. In English, there are at least 3 ways we can read this phrase. First, we can assume the verse says that from time to time, we have these glorious experiences that really change us. Or, second, we can assume the verse says that most of the change that happens in life happens subtly, in between what we feel are glorious experiences. Or, third, most of life consists of change that happens subtly, almost imperceptibly, between glorious moments. But occasionally, we have these glorious aha moments when change seems exponential. That third option sounds an awful lot like the biological principles that I described earlier. Interesting how biological growth and spiritual, mental, emotional growth seem to follow the same principles. It's almost as if it were part of some purposeful design. I jest, of course. I believe it absolutely is part of a purposeful design by the Creator himself. So, back to the question of improving 1% every day for a 3,700% growth over a year. It's a great meme. It's virally pithy and really inspiring. But it just isn't realistic. It doesn't line up with any biological science that I can find. It doesn't line up with the Bible. And it doesn't even line up with what you and I have casually observed in our own lives and the lives of those around us. No one grows 3,700% in 1 year. So instead of liking, sharing, and memorizing things like this meme, I invite you to join me in writing down these 5 principles from the Bible and science and tape them on your mirror or wherever you will see them as inspiration as you go throughout 2022 and even beyond. Number 1, standing still. Most of life consists of periods of standing still, interrupted by little leaps of change that happen subtly, almost imperceptibly. But if you're consciously working to grow, to learn, to improve, you'll continue to make those little periodic leaps, even if it's hard to notice or measure them. No, it won't be 1% daily. That's 100% hype. But you don't need it to be. Number 2, growth spurts. Occasionally, we do have these amazing aha moments where change seems exponential, seasons when a bunch of little leaps rapidly combine into giant spurts that are obvious to you and everyone around you. Now, growth spurts always come with some awkwardness, but we should absolutely embrace those seasons and times of glory. Number 3, large to small. Anytime you're trying to learn something, start with the big ideas and the general concepts and then slowly increase your ability to understand and work with the precise details. And finally, the last two, which are really what this podcast is all about. Number 4, head to tail. Growth starts with a better mind. The New Living Translation of Romans 12:2 says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think." And then number 5, inside to outside. The order is well established. Remember, inside, a better mind always leads to a better life.